All right, y'all, we're back with another Deal Finders podcast with a wonderful couple that is in a mastermind that we're a part of. And so we're going to learn a lot about them and their business today. It's a couple from upstate New York, living down in Florida. Hey, Jenn and Joe, Della, Fave, welcome to the Deal Finders podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for coming. I'm so glad to get this opportunity to talk to y'all. You're a couple in the business working together. We're the same. My wife is on the other side of the room right there. And so it's great to see, the real estate business being a family business. And so let's talk about y'all and where you got started. Where'd you get started in real estate, and what are you doing now in Florida?
So I was raised as a landlord's son, young age, and my father in New York had a lot of properties in some of the toughest neighborhoods of Rochester. So my summer vacations were spent doing like clean outs and all types of really not the best, but I learned at a young age, right? And then I got lucky. I was actually at a buddy's house, and he was showing me something that he bought off an infomercial. Ron LeGrand had a course about how to make $3,000 in 30 days. This was the year 2000. So I asked if I could borrow it because he never even opened the thing. So he let me borrow it. I watched the VCR tapes. I listened to the audio cassette tapes and read the book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was that long ago. And I still have all the stuff, but I ended up wholesaling a house. Had a deal under contract 1 month later. I ended up wholesaling that deal, and I made like $15,000. And at the time, I was in my young 20s. And when you get that kind of check, you thought you struck gold, right?
That is gold.
So fast forward, I have a job in the car dealership. I'm in a finance office. I made this beautiful young lady in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I had my own house. She had her own house. And a few months after dating, we're buying another junker. And she's looking at me like, why do we need this junk house when we have two houses already? And we started buying it and, doing the BRRRR method before we even knew that had a name.
Yeah.
Because we were finding deals after the market took a hit, right, in 2009, 2010. And we started buying up quite a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Jenn eventually walked away from being a teacher to help raise our kiddos. We started a family after we got married, and our business just kept on growing, right? So some of the things were like finding your right roles, but we did, and started learning more about creative financing, right? So those were some of our favorite deals. Our first deal we just bought in BRRRR, and didn't know much about it, but I knew it was a great deal that we found on the MLS. But then after time, we realized that the banks are going to slow you down. It's not the fastest, easiest way to scale. And then I came across more of the Ron LeGrand training in 2016, the spring of 16, about how to buy real estate without using banks, without using your credit, and very little to no cash. And that was like so right up our alley, because if I could get away from having to use banks, this could be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we had quite a few rentals, and I was not loving the landlord life. So it was like perfect timing of, well, if we do lease options and put rent-to-own tenant buyers in, it was really this whole new world that was opening up a lot more doors for us. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, so that you guys, you've done a lot, and it's really funny listening to your timeline, because it's almost exactly what my wife and I did, what Michelle and I did. So when did y'all get married?
2010 in July.
2010. I was like, I bet y'all got married around the same time we did. It's the exact same. We got married in November 2010, but very similar, right? We both had a house. You put us together, and now we have another rental, right? So that's really funny, and I didn't know that until just now. Well, let's back it up, because now Ron LeGrand is in the mastermind that we're a part of, right? So how cool is that to see him all the time?
I know, it's great.
Yeah. So let's go back to the very beginning, because Deal Finders podcast, we like to leave and give our listeners some sort of actionable steps, something they can do today that'll help them find that first deal or next deal, right? Because we all know that real estate opportunities are out there, because you and I have done these, right? Y'all have been doing this business, but folks that are listening that maybe not have started or don't have their consistency going, they don't really see that. So let's help them see that next deal. That first wholesale deal, 15 grand profit. How did you find that? Where was it?
So this is before really the internet was a lot like it is now, right?
Yeah.
So there was no Zillow, there wasn't a YouTube channel that I could watch and and see what's going on. So
No Facebook.
there wasn't Facebook. So really, what I got down was, you see a lot of driving for dollars back then, right? You could do a mailer, but I was broke, so I didn't have money to do a mailer. So what I thought was let my fingers do the walking, and I started calling all of the different suburban towns around my city.
Yep.
And I would call and I would ask for the code enforcement department, and I would say that I'm looking to buy a house in the area.
Yep.
And I was curious to know if you had any houses that were just nothing but a problem, and it's something you'd like to get off your books. And most of them will not give you much information, but the town that we did it in, that I did my deal, the gentleman was like, "Yeah, I've got a situation that the gentleman moved to California. His house has been here vacant. People have broken into it, and I know he would love to sell it." He gave me the guy's phone number and name.
Wow. So people listening to this are probably like, you can't do that anymore. But I'm here to tell you, I know for a fact the code enforcement lady that deals with some of our neighborhoods, like she calls me, she's like, "Andrew, I got one." And sometimes she's called me about ours. She's like, "Your property manager, I told him once, I told him I was going to call you." She's like tattling on her PM, but she will literally tell us like, "Look, this one's been a problem. These people, they won't fix the stuff. I think they'll probably sell it." Like she's just kind of giving us a heads up. They still do it today, right? Do you guys see that?
Well, yeah, because what it is, you're making a real connection with a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't call say I'm a big real estate investor wanting to invest in your town. Like I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to have a relationship with these folks and just be a normal person and let them know that I like the town and I'm looking to buy a house in that area. And do you have anything that would fit? That's just a problem that you'd like to get off of your back, right? And you're helping them solve their problem too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because who wants headaches, right? If you can help somebody with a problem, that's what it's all about.
You got that right. So that is deal finders out there. That is a strategy I'm telling you you can do right now by making that connection. Don't call saying I'm an investor. I want to buy all your crappy houses. No, it's like before we met that code enforcement person, I had gone down to our code office and was just talking to the lady at the front desk. I was like, "Hey, you know what? I think there's some houses that are supposed to be torn down because there was a list, or like a notice on the house. It said demo, like it's going to get torn down." And I was like, "Can you tell me anything about that?" I just went in I was dumb, so I wasn't playing dumb, but I went in dumb, like, "Help me out here. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening." And she printed me the list. It was like 350 houses that were on the demo list. Wow. And this was 3 years ago. I mean, this is pre-COVID, but it was, recent. And she's like, "Here you go. Like, these are the houses that are slated to be torn down. If you want to find the owners, go ahead. You might want to tell them that we're going to tear the house down." Right? So I love that. I love that that's how you got your first deal. Was that town? Was that where you were living or somewhere else?
No, it was in the same suburbs it was a suburb of Rochester, where we're from. So it was across town from us, about only 20 minutes. But it was a great college area. It's where all the big colleges are. So the fact that I even found that type of a deal in there is amazing because usually you can't find deals in that section of town.
Right.
And it was absolutely perfect. So the one thing I've always found is when you talk to the folks at the towns, a lot of times they're fantastic people.
Yeah.
And if you just ask a couple good questions, they're on your side and they'll give you all the information and not for nothing, a lot of them not say they know the town gossip, right? They know the scoop and they'll share that information with you. And so I found that to be an extremely huge resource for us.
Absolutely. And again, like we still use that as a resource. They're people, they're real people. They have jobs just like everyone else. They have jobs. So it's not something that don't be afraid of them. Don't act like that you can't touch them, but go with respect and ask questions. They're just like everyone else, right? And they want, like you said, the town gossip. They also want to share it. We all like to say gossip and talk to people. So I love that. I encourage people to do that and go today. You can go today and ask those questions. All right, so that was the first deal. And then y'all got married and and then you got more houses, right? So let's move up a little bit and kind of talk more about what you're doing today. Maybe you're moved down to Florida and the kind of business that you're doing now?
So we started buying a lot of real estate virtually.
Okay.
We do our marketing online, so we have a lot of inbound leads. So what we found while in Rochester was, especially when COVID happened, people didn't want you walking through their house. Especially in the beginning of COVID, everybody was terrified. So we realized that these little phones of ours are really great tools, and we could do a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. We could FaceTime. So a lot of the houses that we buy are with creative finance, which is really, we've dialed into the science of buying all of this real estate without banks, without using credit, and it's helped us scale. So with that being the case, when you're looking at beautiful houses and beautiful neighborhoods, you don't always need to do a walkthrough, especially when we're buying on terms. So we started buying them virtually, one house at a time.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this big, huge thing that happened overnight. But then what happened was we started realizing that we needed help. It was just Jen and myself. So we started hiring a team. Acquisition manager, disposition, who helps us once we make these deals find the right buyer, whether it's a tenant buyer. Sometimes we wholesale some of these deals away. And we were just in upstate New York, couldn't stand being home, self-employed in these long winters that are freezing cold. We live close to Canada. So we had the itch just last year to take a month and let's go down to Florida for the month of March and let's get out of the cold. We actually spent 4 or 5 days in South Carolina, visiting my mother-in-law. So we spent some time in Charleston, which is always fun, but we were coming down here to spend a month. We were going to work remote, and we figured if we could work remote in New York, why can't we do it in Florida?
Right.
And we were only here for a few weeks of March, and I'm not going to say who, but
I had a plan.
Somebody sitting next to me had more up her sleeves than I realized, and she's like, I'm not leaving. I don't want to go back to New York.
You didn't realize when she packed the entire house, like she wasn't leaving Florida.
Well, we fell in love with just, feeling like we could live on our own terms. Coming from teaching and coming from me in the corporate world, we thought we weren't going to be able to do anything like that until we retired.
Yeah.
So our goal was, one day this was going to happen, but you see it happening in your 60s.
Right.
I didn't think in my, young mid-40s that this was going to be a plan. So, but we did. And
it was really all when COVID hit and we went full-time with the real estate and the kids were home virtually schooling. And since I was a teacher, I did not like that model. It wasn't very conducive trying to adhere to what the teachers were asking. And the kids my son was in kindergarten. He sat here on a computer, which he did great. But I thought, what, I think I could homeschool. So I researched that, and that's what we did. And so I knew that I would just take our materials and go down to Florida. And then we just stayed, and then we ended up moving. And so, I just feel like whatever you truly want, you can make it happen. It just takes some time and education to really make sure that you're taking that right path.
Yeah, I love that. So a lot of what we talk about from like, why are we in real estate? Why are we investing in real estate? Why are we spending time finding these deals and learning how to talk to sellers? Ultimately, it's for that freedom, right? And freedom looks different for everybody. It's not always, I want to have so much money I can buy whatever I want, but I want to have freedom to go down to Florida for a month and work, or just move to Florida, because you're working remotely. It's your business. You can do it how you want, and you've found a way to do it virtually, so why not move where you want to live? And who's to say you don't want to move somewhere else? You've created that business with freedom. So kudos to y'all for doing that. That's just, I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
And so now, you're in Florida, you're doing your business there. Have you found that you're getting deals in Florida, or are you still doing a virtual model using your phone to market?
So we're doing a lot of deals in Florida. I've got a couple available right now. We have one available in Colorado that we're going to assign. It's a house that was built 8 months ago, just an hour north of Denver. House is turnkey, absolutely beautiful, needs nothing. The folks are actually moving to Florida because they're having a baby, want to move to closer to family. So we have a deal in New York we're doing right now, and a bunch we just recently did. So the neat thing about it is with us, we've always figured if we could find a great deal is a great deal.
Yep.
And if it's an area that we're going to buy and keep them in, then we do. So that's been really helpful. So for us, even if the house is 45 minutes away or half an hour away, I still don't want to go to it.
You still don't go to it.
I don't go to them. I mean, once in a while, but I generally don't. We've kind of figured out a way to not have to.
Yeah.
And rather it's a half hour away or 2 states away. To me, it's the same difference.
It's not the same. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you're finding those, because ultimately that's what we're here for, Deal Finders. We talked about how you can find them low budget, go into your neighborhood or your community, city office, whatever that is. What are you doing now? Because now you've got some deals under your belt. You've got to be doing some sort of marketing. What is that?
Yeah, we generally do a handful of deals every month.
Okay.
So what we do is we do a lot of social media marketing. We do a lot on Facebook. It's been one of the great spots for us. If you're just starting off, you could just say on your own personal Facebook page that, hey, if you don't know already, but I buy houses, and if anybody's looking to sell their house, reach out to me, and I'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to buy it. So It's even that simple. We could get leads that way, but we do social media marketing. We get incoming leads. It's usually around 10 to 20 leads a day come into our office. We have an office here in Florida. We've got employees. We're actually in our office now. We got our staff upstairs working. So what we do is we have these leads come in. We filter them. We have a series of questions we'll ask, and we just see where the best fit is in that situation. And when a lot of folks look at a cash offer, which works, and we do a lot of those too, cash offer is very black and white. Either the numbers work or they don't. This is my offer. This is what I could pay. The reason why we love these creative finance deals is because instead of black and white, it's like a spectrum of colors. There's so many ways to structure a deal how do you pay top dollar for a house, right? We have that question asked all the time. Well, if a seller is letting you take over, their existing mortgage at a really low interest rate, like we just did one we're doing, it's 3.25%.
Wow.
And we're able to buy it with no money down or $100 down, and we have a low payment because the interest rate's so low, and they give us a really long term. Price isn't really almost as important. So like we have one right now we just did in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I always like to talk about our most recent deals. Yeah. And this is a beautiful turnkey. It's absolutely stunning. And the seller says, if you give me $5,000 down, you could take over my payment. And the property's $330,000. He wanted his number. His big win was his number. You could pay $330,000 for his property. He just bought it for $300,000 last year, and said, I put some money into it. I need $330,000. And if you give me $330,000, I'll let you take over my mortgage. You just give me $5,000 down, and I'll give you 10 years to pay me off my balance, because he owes much less. I think he's got like almost $90,000 of equity, and he's willing to wait for that $90,000 up to 10 years to get cashed out. Wow. So for that property, if somebody's looking for something that's just drop dead gorgeous, turnkey, the palm trees, it's the whole look. This place is stunning. It's a great deal for somebody. So if the opportunity to find somebody up north moving down to Florida who wants to move into a 55 and older community, who's turnkey, beautiful, doesn't have to go through the bank financing, doesn't have to even pay today's interest rates, right? You could get a much lower interest rate by doing it this way. So what we figured, putting our heads together, is if the market rate now, if interest rates were still at 3%, I think the market would still be on fire.
Oh, absolutely.
So the strategy for us is we're still buying these deals at 3%.
Right.
So for us, the market is still on fire, but we're the only ones, not the only ones, but there's not a lot who could figure out this strategy. Yeah. So this is why we love sharing how it is happening, because, on the flip side, there's a lot of folks who maybe bought a house in the last year or two who really need to sell it, but maybe they're in a situation where listing on the market, they might have to take a loss. They might have to write a lot of money to get rid of this property. Yep. And some of these situations we come across are just that. So if we're able to help them out, it's a huge win for us, and they don't have to worry about getting some low-ball cash offer that doesn't work for them, because in those situations, many times they owe too much, and that low offer doesn't work. So what do we do for those sellers who has a beautiful house, they owe too much, where a low cash offer doesn't work, but they really need to sell? This is where this strategy really works well, and we're able to help a lot of those folks out.
Yeah. So for those of y'all that are listening, and maybe you see I'm over here taking notes, I got my pen and paper out, so I hope you are taking notes. rewind it if you're not. If you're watching this or listening, you can watch us on YouTube at the Deal Finders Club YouTube channel. But I'm over here taking notes, so I've got to ask you just a couple of things, because I want to give some detail to that, because you gave a big strategy, big plan, and I see it working. We do some of this in our business as well. But this is the question I get all the time from our students and people in the Deal Finders is, who in the world would do this? What kind of seller? And you talked about one, right, the high equity or whatever. But what is that? What is going on in their mind, in their life? What person would let you take over their 3.25% mortgage for 10 years? Like, why would they do this? This doesn't make any sense from the outside looking in. What would you say to that?
So, and I hear that often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I did was I stopped trying to figure out why.
It's a huge mindset shift.
Right? Because I just, if we are able to offer a plan that they like and they're comfortable with and that we're able to help them with, I mean, I have so many examples. We'd have to have part 2 of this podcast to go over all of them. So I guess to break it down to fit in this time frame, I would say the majority of our avatar seller is somebody who bought a house and ownership is probably less than 5 years.
Yeah.
I see a lot of folks relocating for one reason or another. It could be a job, it could be schooling, it could be a death in the family, it could be a divorce.
Yep.
It could be, I just don't like this area anymore and I need to change.
Well, the Colorado seller you spoke of, they're having a baby, so they want to plan their move so that they don't have to worry about her going into labor and all the stress that comes with that. So she wants to time the sale, and that was huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, and it's anything like buying a house at a discount. People will trade, money for speed and convenience.
Right.
So when we always figure with buying a house cash, why would people take this low offer? Why wouldn't they go put it on the market? Why wouldn't they rehab it themselves? You stop asking the questions.
Who cares?
Right? Because you know what? You never know. But yeah, we do ask them what is their, what's going on, and we try to really get down to how can we help them? What's the best fit for this situation? So, the gentleman that we're doing the deal in Port St. Lucie bought this house of April last year.
Okay.
He came from a much larger house, moved into this house that I love this house. It's just too small. It's only 1,300 square feet, and I need more space.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he already has his next house picked out. He's already planning on moving in a few weeks.
Yep.
And he says, listen, if I could get $330 for this, I don't care about my equity. He didn't need the money to move into his next house. It wasn't a thing to him.
But he didn't want to take a loss.
Well, then he didn't want to take a loss, and if he did put it on the market, and if he did list it at $330, the market's pulling back right now.
Yep.
By the time you pull it back, pricing a little bit, maybe less than what he wanted, and then you pay a 6 or 5% commission, and then closing costs on top of that, he's going to net much less than what he wanted.
Yep.
And he knew that. So I said, well, if I'm going to stretch to that number, which is a little bit high, not ridiculously high, but it's a little bit higher, I can do that, but I'm going to need a term length. I can't get you cashed out in 1 year. I'm going to need probably, more than that, and we agreed on 10.
Awesome. I love that. So a few more details for the folks taking notes and myself, because I'm learning too, is when you take over the mortgage, are you changing ownership? Are you doing a trust for the property, or are you just taking it over and trying to get out of it as soon as possible?
No, I love them. I want to keep in them as long as possible. We want to accumulate property. So what our vision is to accumulate cash flowing assets for as long as we possibly can without using a bank or credit. So non-recourse debt, right? So for me, it's really wanting to keep them as long as we can.
Yeah.
So our exit strategy, though, we do put in tenant buyers that we do a rent-to-own program with. So our tenant buyers give us a large non-refundable option deposit to move in.
Okay.
So we get a nice chunk up front. We get monthly cash flow like a landlord, but we're not responsible for the maintenance and the repairs. So that's a big plus. And then down the road, once these folks do buy the house, and sometimes it's not the first tenant buyer you put in, maybe it could be the second one, but eventually when that house does get bought and they do buy it, you get a large back-end check, like if you were to fix and flip the house, but you're not paying a realtor a 6% commission because we sell it directly to the renter.
Yep.
And if you own the property for more than a year, it helps you with your capital gains tax too.
Right.
We do buy in a land trust.
Yeah, and to answer your question, we do buy them. We deed them all into a land trust.
Yep.
The properties into a trust. We take possession of the property. We own it. The deed transfers to us, but the loan will still stay in the seller's name until we get them cashed out.
Right.
Right. So for those of y'all listening, the land trust, I know I asked the question without explaining it, but deeding it into a land trust kind of helps you hold it longer and do that mortgage takeover longer without alerting the banks and making them do what's it called, the due on sale clause, basically. So converting it into a land trust, having the seller deed it into the trust, and then you buy it with that helps you, correct?
We actually, right at closing, just put it into a trust
Right, all at the same time.
Right at the same time, and then we buy it that way. And you're right. And there's ways like the due on sale clause, for maybe some folks who don't know what that means. The bank has a clause in their mortgages. Some banks, some lenders do, that if you were to transfer that deed to a new buyer without paying them off, they could call the loan due and say, we need the full amount within the next whatever. So, but it's like almost like getting hit by lightning.
Yeah.
It can happen, but if the bank doesn't want to take the house back, they're not in the business of owning real estate. They want to lend money. So their whole big thing is if you have the proper insurance on the house and you're making the payments on time, your chance of having that done are very slim to none. And then if it ever happens, there's a slew of things that you can do to stop it from happening. And then some sellers in the beginning, to even rewind a little further, might say that's an obstacle. Like, what about the due on sale clause? And there's ways that you can still buy it either on a lease purchase, right? Or I could buy it on what's called contract for deed, which this basically means that the deed doesn't transfer until, they get cashed out later on. And so there's ways to avoid that even in the beginning. So if that's the seller's concern, then we have got ways to still buy the property without having that be an issue. And if they don't care, I don't care, because we will make sure we pay everything on time.
That's right. So, y'all, there's a lot. I know we're talking a lot of stuff for the beginners out there. They're like, oh my gosh, what did I just listen to? This is so much. I have no idea what's happening. It's way over your head. We are going to link Jenn and Joe's contact info in the show notes. And is there a website we can give that's usually pretty simple that they can go maybe get some more info or find out how to talk to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We love social, but you can check us out, creativefinanceplaybook.com, and you'll find our YouTube channel. We go live weekly because these questions come up all the time. And it took me I was an English teacher, so there was a lot of explaining on his part, teaching me the ropes. And, once you get it and you understand what they're even talking about, it honestly is one of the best ways to buy real estate, if not the best, I believe. But yeah, we're Facebook and Instagram, Jenn and Joe Della Fave, but we just love helping others understand it, because I know how much it is. Like, it's almost like a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
Like all these terms and everything, but break it down, learn it bit by bit, and start implementing little bits.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the Deal Finders podcast, y'all, we talk about finding the deal, but there's more to finding the deal. There's acquiring the deal, holding the deal, selling the deal. There's lots of different pieces in this business. Why I love real estate is we are doing podcasts every week, and every week it's a different strategy, it's a different tactic, somebody that's doing it their own way that works for their life, somebody that's moving from New York to Florida because of the freedom that they found in real estate, and they're doing this strategy that like you said, very few people even, they might know about it, but they don't understand it, so they don't approach sellers that way. So you're finding these sellers that are like, please help me. Nobody else can, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that, y'all. There's so many more questions. I would sit here, like you said, a part 2 would be so much fun. We could go way deeper into this. But if you have questions, if you want to reach out to them, go to that website. Say it one more time so I don't mess it up.
Yep, creativefinanceplaybook.com.
There you go. And y'all, the instruction is out there. Podcasts are everywhere. YouTube channels are everywhere. You can figure this business out, but what it takes is action on your part. You've got to get out there and get to work. So if you're ready to get going, if you're ready to start finding some deals, you can check our website out, dealfindersclub.com. Check out the info that we have there. If you need a community, like Jenn and Joe talked about, getting in a community, finding someone to coach them along, then the Deal Finders Club might be for you. you can go there and apply for that, where we will actually motivate you, hold your feet to the fire, and show you how to find these deals so that you can actually get going and help you take action. Jenn and Joe, this has been a great podcast. I feel like I'm cutting it off in the middle because there's so much more, but we got to stop at some point. So I'm going to let y'all give any parting wisdom to that new real estate investor, that person that's just getting started. What would you tell them today to help them go?
Well, I think you just hit it right on the head. Is, what we're doing, it sounds complicated. It's really not, especially once you grasp the fundamentals of how to do it. The biggest challenge is taking that action. So many folks could learn how to do it, but unless you take that action, that's the difference. That's really the defining force. So for me, I really didn't know a lot when I very first got started, but I took action, and that was the key for me getting that first deal. So the fact that you offer, to get them motivated, to hold them accountable,
That's huge.
That's part of the game, because we give you the education. Without you putting that work, it's all for nothing, right? So
Yep.
I think for newbie, get the education, but then go to work, pick up the phone.
Don't quit. I think that's the other thing. I see a lot of people just throw in the towel. It's way too soon, and they're so close to their first deal. And once you get the first one, it does get easier because you do understand the processes. So
Yes.
keep going.
I love that. I love that. Y'all, Jenn and Joe, look forward to seeing y'all in March. We'll see you soon. And thank y'all for being on the podcast. Deal finders out there, go take action. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.